Good afternoon everybody, and a warm welcome to Beringer on this late Tuesday afternoon. And today, today's theme is The Welsh Have Arrived, and as well as that, there's a few other bits and pieces to talk about and show you also. So, first thing to show you is this. This is my latest recruit to the layout. There is another recruit to show you, but I'll get onto that shortly. But in the meantime, this is my newest arrival to the layout, and this is a Batman Class 158 in the Arriva Trains West livery, and it is 158823. Now, this particular 158, the Arriva Trains 158 is actually been out for some time now, as is most Class 158s, and this particular one is a very, very, very difficult one to get hold of. And basically, I managed to track one down, and it's basically untouched, really. You know, considering how long this has been out now, and it still stands up to the test of time. I mean, the detail is still very good. It's got directional lighting, although it's not like the most modern of directional lighting, but it does the effect. It's basically it's got tail lights and front lights as well, headlights I should say, and it's in a very attractive livery, which is what I wanted to get. I wanted it to match my 150. Those of you may have seen that, but you will actually see that in this video because it's parked up at Moorwoods, which we'll get onto later on. So if I just show you what it's like, it's not a single mark on it, and it runs really, really nicely, and it's just really, really lovely and pretty. The only thing I would say about it is that compared to my 150 and like my 108 DMUs, it is actually shorter. Sorry, the DMUs are actually shorter. This particular one is actually longer. The other ones probably sort of finish at about there. The length of this particular DMU is probably the equivalent of, like, say, a Mark III coach. So I was a bit kind of worried about getting it round some of the corners here at Beringer, but it's coped with it fine, and it runs nicely, as I said, and it's, like I said, it's unblemished, it's unmarked, and I'm very pleased with her. It runs really, really nicely, like I said, and it complements Moorwoods really well, and will go along with my Class 150. Here in front of you is my second recruit, and this is also in the Arriva Trains Wales livery, and this is a Hornby Class 153. And this particular 153 is also a second-hand example, but a very, very good second-hand example, which again, it's virtually as new as is the 158 behind it, and it runs lovely as well. And but this one's got a bit more updated lighting to it. The clusters are a bit more prototypical of the real thing. Unlike the 158, isn't quite there. The detail's just lacking slightly. But like I said, I'm not going to detract anything from the 158 because I actually love it. Anywho, so this is the 153, and again, in terms of length, is pretty much the same length as the 158, and pretty much the same as a Mark III coach, I would say. But the difference is although it's in the same livery, you can see that the actual colour, the actual Hornby blue, is actually slightly different, slightly lighter, whereas the Arriva Batman 158 behind is a bit more turquoisey than what this camera actually shows. But it is definitely a different tone to the Hornby one. I did have a bit of an issue with this 153 in terms of not that there was anything wrong with it, it was just that it came with a decoder, and because I run DC on here I needed to have the decoder removed, because though it was running, and they say you can run locos on DC layouts, DCC locos on DC layouts, quite frankly it was running too rough and it just didn't run properly. So I've had to take it back to my model shop and ask them to remove the body, because the clips on the Hornby 153 are quite tricky and I didn't really want to damage the underbody. So I asked them to remove the chip that was inside it, and now she runs smooth. And I found that I had this problem actually with a Class 50 Serdal Delga that I had, and also with my BR Blue Class 56, which although they had sound DCC chips fitted to them and they ran on the layout, they didn't run very well. But now they've also had their chips removed, and now they run pretty much spot on now. Just before we make our way down towards Moorwood, a couple of other bits and pieces have cropped up on the layout. Mainly these two transit vans, which I wasn't really expecting. I didn't realise they'd actually come out. I actually got a white one, and this is a British Rail one. Which is very nice. And this is the Royal Mail version. And as somebody once said to me, you can't have too many transit vans on an 80s layout. Also, I picked up some station figures. These will primarily be going to be on Barringer, although I might get another set and accent them to make them Arriva Trains Wales, sort of like they've got their uniform, maybe paint the tyres or something, paint the trolley here in a sort of turquoisey colour, just to kind of give it that differential look about it. So I might just pick out those bits and pieces just to kind of differentiate the figures. So I might get another pack of that as well. And as you can see, I've got my my Transit in British Rail yellow, and that sort of complements the Land Rover that's just down on the bottom. So I haven't had a chance to take it out yet. As we come down towards the rock face, I've added a few more bits and pieces to it. I've now added some flowers on here, just on there, just growing out. There's also a bit of fine leaf foliage that was given to me from my friend Michelle, and I've also added some fine leaf foliage just here, and I've also added some along here sticking out of the rock face. And then obviously there's a couple of other bits sort of poking out here and there, which is one there, and there's one there. Now I haven't overly done this because what I find and what I tend to do with these things is that I find that it's better if I work on them when at a bit at a time. It's like when I did the rock face to begin with, I originally put it all together and then I left it white, and then I sort of did that and left it for a few days before I decided on the colour, and then I painted it, and then when I did the colour I again left it for a few days and to see whether or not I liked the colour, and then I went back again over the colour if I didn't like it, which is what I did do, because it was a bit too pinky. I said that I felt it might have been, and no, it was just bugging me, so I redid it with another grey wash over it, and now that's toned it down, so that looks much better. And it's the same with the with all the foliage and everything. I've just done bits and pieces, left it, come back, and I thought, yeah, I could do with a bit more here or a bit more there. And that's how I kind of worked at it, because I didn't really want to sort of overdo it all in one go, and then after it'd be too much. So I've kind of left it sort of a few days at a time and sort of see how I get on with it and whether I liked it. The other thing to note is actually before I did any of the foliage, I actually Robin was asking me about how to do some rock faces, and I'm gonna probably do a tutorial on that at some point soon, because I've got a few bits and pieces to do. But just to give you a brief outline, I'm the sort of person that doesn't mind spending the money if I know where the money's going. And if I feel like I could save myself money and it's not going to make any difference in terms of the overall effect that I want, then I'll quite happily use cheaper materials, because it's basically you're not gonna see the difference. And the prime example of this is to do with the colour of the rock face. Now, if you go onto YouTube, there's plenty of videos by Woodland Scenics themselves showing you the techniques, which to a degree I followed, but they're also talking about using their pigments. Now, I'll be honest with you, there's not a single Woodland Scenics pigment on this rock face. It's because I just find them to be like $6.95, I think it is $6.95, $7.95, something like that, a pot. And to me, you need there's about 3 or 4 different colours. I think there's about 4 colours in this, on this rock face. And when you sort of start adding it up, and these pigments do go a long way, but I don't really need a huge amount of it. I mean, if I just sort of pan out, it's not a huge amount of rock face there. That's it on the layout. So I don't necessarily need to, and the wash, because you dilute it down with water as a wash, it goes a long way. So basically what I've done is I've actually used the acrylics that I've had knocking about. I had some grey acrylic paint, I had some dark grey acrylic paint, and then I had some black acrylic paint, and then I also had some sort of pinky kind of terracotta kind of acrylic paint. And to be honest with you, that's what I've done to create the colour on the rock face, and it saved me a lot of money, because ultimately it's paint that I've already got knocking about, which I was using for other bits, and I can make the most of without having to spend even more money unnecessarily on paint or pigment that I wasn't really going to use. The other thing about this is they also recommend that you use scenic cement. So what I've done is, once I'd coloured it, I actually went over it with some matte varnish to seal it. Now, I'm not going to say this is probably the right way of doing it or the wrong way of doing it. Only time will tell whether or not using my method will work better. But at the moment, I'm very happy with the results, and I think it's a realistic looking way of using. I think it just looks realistic, to be truthful with you, in my way. And I don't necessarily try and big myself up or anything. I just don't see the point in spending all this extra money unnecessarily when you're not really going to see the true benefit. And lastly, another way of saving money on this rock face was the fact that they also say that you should use basically their sponge applicators, which is basically a bit of sponge on a lolly stick. And to me, I mean, I don't know how much you pay for those things, but it's not worth it, to be honest with you. I went to a local supermarket and just got a pack of cheap basic sponges, which cost me about 50p for a pack of 3, and there were like 3 sponges which were like about big chunks like that, which you could just cut off. And again, you could reuse those sponges elsewhere, and you don't even have to worry, they're so cheap, they're just disposable. So again, I would go down that road, but then again, it's like each to their own, and I've found that to be a very effective way of doing it. But again, I'll probably do a bit of a tutorial on it at some point, but this is how basically my rock face has come about, really. So we'll go on to Moorwood, I should say, and show you what's been happening there. So here we are down towards Moorwood, and the whole point of this corner, where the rock face is and Moorwood is to make this as rural as possible. And so what I've done is I had this Metcalfe signal box here, and basically I've now mounted it onto a sort of plinth and cut it into the hillside. And if I show you here, you can see the raw rock face here. It's still going off, and I'm still got to play around with it. But that's basically how it looks, fairly raw. And basically I've now just got to reblend that in from this side into the countryside bit. So that's something I've got to do. That's the bit that's still sort of going off and drying. Over at Moorwood we have some fencing in the Arriva Trains colours liveried. We've got some signage, appropriate signage. That is basically, I think it was like a Sankey Scenic sort of posters that came a while back. I scanned them into my computer, saved it, so I can make loads of copies of it as and when I needed to. And that's been mounted onto card. The two outer bits are just 2 bits of matchsticks, and then after I've just painted them into the appropriate colours. Here we have the resized and new destination boards, which I've done. And if you can see what the old ones are like, you see how much difference there is in the size, and that is pretty much it. So that is a whole lot better, and again that is just simply just scratch built, and it's come out really nicely as well. I've got to get some platform numbers I should say, onto the station as well. That's something else I need to do. I've also got some appropriate posters to do with Arriva Trains Wales and Welsh Countryside Explore Wales and all that sort of stuff. One of my grit boxes from the Batman Scenecraft range, the platform bus shelter, which I haven't quite finished yet. Some more posters, and in the background you can see my Arriva Trains Wales DMU 150. So that's that one. So I've now got the 153, the 150 and the 158. Also I've got some more station signage and all sorts. The posts have been painted and accented as well. As we move along, the footbridge, the bookstore has also been painted, and I've just got to put the stickers on that. And if we go along, as you can see underneath of it, there's also plenty of station signage, posters and all sorts, and you can also see that this side has also been lit up along here underneath, and as you can see underneath, it's just basically black mount card facing down with those £1 LEDs, which are then cable tied to be held into position. And as if you look along the top, you can see the sort of wiring. It's very simple, and then it's connected to the terminal block, and then that terminal block is then connected into the main wiring where the rest of the lights are. I've now used all of the lighting that I have from that £1 lighting range that I have. I don't have any more, so I won't be able to light anything up for a while, but hopefully the effect is enough to give it what I want. So I'm pretty pleased with the way things have gone. So I'll just give you another brief sort of look at how the plinth is. I wanted to sort of blend that in with the signal box, but I just thought it would be quite nice for it to overlook the station. I'm really sort of pleased with that. And once it's all blended in better and I've done the rock face and everything like that, hopefully it will just look really natural. And here I'm going to be putting some semaphore signals again to sort of accentuate the ruralness of this part of the layout. So we'll have some semaphore signals down this end, and also I'm going to probably blend in the embankment a bit more again also. So there's still plenty to do, but we're getting there. So I'm going to leave you with a quick shot of my Arriva Trains 150. So thanks for watching. Please feel free to comment, subscribe as always, and I will speak to you all soon. Bye for now.